I don't bow to committees. I don't pay for pools I'll never swim in. And I sure as hell don't let strangers write rules for land I bought with cash and scars. That's probably why Gordon Hale, the slick-smiled emperor of the Lakeview Association, set his sights on me. First came the letters dressed up like party invitations, perfumed with community and fine print. Then one morning the security cameras mysteriously died, the locks were sliced clean, and someone scrawled red paint across my wall. Play by the rules. Their rules. When the cops finally rolled up, they shrugged like waiters at a bad diner. Gave me the same suggestion everyone does before the shakedown. Maybe you should just join the HOA. Yeah, that happened. They thought I'd fold. Instead, I turned on every light I owned and watched who flinched. Because when a private army hides behind city logos and fake inspections, you don't negotiate. You document, escalate, and drag the truth out into daylight. Before I go any further, drop a comment with where you're watching from in your local time. Seriously, I want to see just how far HOA horror stretches. Now buckle up, because my story starts in the gray dawn of Cedar Bluff Industrial Park, back when the only sound greeting me was the hum of my security gates. Years of that routine coffee and hand boots on gravel, sun barely up, felt like the reward for building Carter systems from nothing but sweat and stubbornness. Smart locks, biometric scanners, surveillance grids. My little fortress served everyone from billionaires to defense contractors. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. Fences 15 feet high, motion lights ready to blind a hawk. Cameras wired by my own hands. This land answered to me, not to some committee. But every fortress attracts a siege, right? And mine came wearing khakis and carrying clipboards. The Lakeview Property Association had metastasized across the county like crabgrass in July, calling themselves an association, but really they were a cartel, dues, fines, rules so ridiculous you couldn't sneeze without a permit. Their president, Gordon Hale, loved wrapping his tyranny in honeyed words about community and property values. He shook hands like he'd practiced in the mirror dry tight, and just a hair too confident. The first letter landed in my mailbox, thick paper, gold seal, the kind of thing that tries to impress you before you even open it. Dear Mr. Carter, we strongly encourage you to consider joining the Lakeview Association. Membership will ensure harmony with your neighbors and prevent potential misunderstandings. I laughed. Prevent misunderstandings, huh? That's corporate speak for do as we say or else. I shredded the letter and went back to calibrating sensors for a Pentagon contract. But the letters kept coming month after month, getting sharper each time. My neighbors started whispering about Hale's playbook. First come the sugar-coated offers, then come the warnings about property values, and then like clockwork, the city inspector finds violations on your property. By the time you catch on, the HOA already has its claws in. But here's the thing, I'd bought my land before their development even existed. Legally, I owed them nothing. I could quote the zoning code chapter and verse. Private industrial parcels outside HOA covenants untouchable. The problem isn't the law, it's the people willing to twist it. That fall, things turned ugly. One morning I pulled into the lot and saw the gate hanging open, padlock on the ground snapped clean like a wishbone. My gut tightened. Whoever did this wasn't just trespassing, they were declaring war. Inside crates were overturned servers, smashed monitors ripped from the walls. They went straight for the backbone client data prototypes that weren't even on the market. Red paint screamed from the wall. Play by the rules. I stood in the wreckage, fistballed, breathing slow. This wasn't vandalism, it was theater. So I called the cops. You know what happened? They showed up. Shrugged, said it was probably kids. I pointed at the cut locks, the surgical precision, the fact that nothing valuable had been stolen. Kids don't bypass motion sensors and take out servers without leaving a trace, I snapped. The older cop just stared. Look, Mr. Carter, we'll file a report. But unless you've got a suspect, not much we can do. If you want fewer problems, maybe consider joining the association. Could prevent this sort of thing. The pitch slipped in like a knife between the ribs. When they left, I stood in the stink of spray paint and doubt crawled up my spine. Did Hale own the cops too? How deep did this rabbit hole go? But I hadn't built Carter Systems by folding. I built it by outlasting, outworking, and when needed, outsmarting every obstacle in my way. If the HOA wanted a war, they'd get one. That afternoon, I gathered my staff. Riley Park, my ops manager, had been with me since the days of soldering iron in a rented garage. They want us scared, I told them. They want us thinking this is bigger than us. But we don't bend. We don't break. They cut locks. We weld steel. They kill cameras. We launch drones. They want tribute. Not in this lifetime. Riley nodded. Eyes hard. You heard the man. Get me a list of every damaged system. We'll rebuild smarter and meaner. The mood shifted from fear to pure stubborn defiance. That night, I walked the fence line alone, October wind tugging at my jacket. All those suburban rooftops sparkling beyond the fence, little kingdoms paying tribute to Hale's empire. How many homeowners even knew their community association was bleeding them dry? I made myself a promise I wouldn't just protect what was mine. I'd expose every shady deal, every fake inspection, every cop in Hale's pocket. But the HOA wasn't finished. Within a week, weird things started circling me. Cameras flickered footage, went static at the exact moments I needed it most. One morning, Riley and I spotted heavy tire tracks in the mud outside the fence, angled straight at my property. Nobody had permission to be out there. Someone was watching. Then driving past the bland brick office that housed the association, I saw Hale leaning against his SUV, laughing with two city officials I recognized from zoning meetings. That was my twist, the realization this wasn't some bumbling neighborhood club. These guys were running a racket hiding behind city logos. A few days later, the break-in happened again. Padlock in pieces, servers, trash, scarlet paint on the wall. Obey the rules. Nothing stolen, just destroyed. I called the police, and again they shrugged it off as teenagers. One even said, "You know, Mr. Carter, problems like this have a way of disappearing if you work with the community." I nearly lost it. They weren't even pretending anymore. After they left, Riley looked me dead in the eye. "They're not going to help us, Miles. If anything, they're covering for them." I knew she was right. So we handled it ourselves, doubled the security budget, brought in biometric redundancy, upgraded every server, and called in an old friend, Noah Mercer, former federal security guy. He walked the property for hours, came back with a folder. "This wasn't kids," he said. "They studied your setup, moved with purpose. This was professional." And he was right. Defense wasn't enough. I needed leverage. That's when the city surveyor showed up, neon vests, municipal logos, mapping the edge of my land. Just preliminary surveys, they said eyes shifty. I spent 3 hours on hold with the county, and a clerk finally admitted Lakeview Association had filed for a rezoning adjustment buried in jargon but clear as day, a new public easement right through my property. That was legal warfare. I called my attorney, Ava Lynn, tenacious, sharp as broken glass. She laid it out. "They're testing how far you'll let them push. If this rezoning passes, they get to expand one pathway today, full control tomorrow. Then we play longer," I shot back. Ava filed a formal objection, bought us time. But she said it plain. You need evidence tying them to the sabotage. Without proof, it's your word against theirs. The next few weeks were a siege. Delivery trucks, block suppliers turned away by city men who moved too smooth to be real officials. Noah traced them back to Guardian City Services, a private security firm with a knack for masquerading as contractors. Ava found campaign donations matching HOA minutes and shell company addresses. Meanwhile, every fake inspection, every surprise noise complaint, every digital breach attempt, we logged, time-stamped, and secured. Riley ran the team like a general, but even she looked tired. The real break came late at night. Reviewing security footage, caught a delivery truck. After hours, a man slipping out with an eavesdropping array, tucking it into the grass by our server room. Noah pulled the truck's plate off traffic cams, traced it to a nondescript warehouse, no sign, no name, just a rusted dock. He staked it out and sure enough spotted Hale's brother, Lucas Hale, walking in and out, clipboard in hand, directing men in municipal costumes. The web was tightening. Ava filed for a subpoena preservation order and emergency injunction. The judge, smelling the stink, signed off. Subpoenas landed, paperwork flooded in, and Jackpot the warehouse delivered manifests, matching the break-in dates. Payment ledgers labeled consulting fees to shell companies linked to the HOA, and finally emails. Make sure the subject receives a clear message. No arrest necessary. Disrupt supply. The prosecutor's office called us in hours later. The war was entering a courtroom. But Hale wasn't done. Next came the financial attacks, my accounts frozen by complaints from confidential sources. I called in every favor I had. Still sabotage hit again, masked men. Ripped power relays, trashed server racks. The police shrugged, and one had the nerve to say, "Things go smoother if you work with the community." Finally, Ava landed the kill shot. Guardian City's payments lined up with every incident, Hale's signature on authorization memos. Drones captured footage of HOA board members directing operations, Hale himself on site passing out envelopes. We filed a full lawsuit, conspiracy, harassment, malicious interference. The courthouse was packed. Ava laid out the timeline, the money, the emails, the footage. The judge, seeing enough, froze the HOA accounts, terminated the rezoning, and put the association under investigation. Outside reporters swarmed. All I said was, no one should have to fight this hard to keep what they already own. Back at Carter Systems, Riley pinned a copy of the injunction to the wall like a trophy. The mood shifted, heads held high, but the scars ran deep. Ava warned me not to let my guard down. Noah Blunt as ever said, expect retaliation. People don't like the guy who broke their machine. But the tide had turned. The state attorney general opened a formal investigation. The private security firm got raided. Hale was indicted, embezzlement, fraud, the works. The association's board imploded. Neighbors once silent spoke up about years of intimidation, fines for kids' bikes, threats over garden gnomes. My fight had pulled the lid off something rotten. Standing on my property that night, floodlights humming, fences tall and unyielding, I realized this was never just about me. It was about principle. The real cost of independence isn't money or property, it's endurance, the willingness to take every punch and still say, no, this is mine. Bullies thrive on silence. They win when good people bend because it's easier. So if you've ever stared down an HOA, a boss, or any petty tyrant who thinks power gives them the right to control you, bend or fight. I fought, and I don't regret it. Now tell me, what battles have you fought for your land, your home, your peace? Drop a comment below. Let's hear your story.